All right, so for this lecture, I'm just going to keep introducing Earth science. So this first week is kind of just a general introduction to the course. We'll go through some definitions on this lecture, and we'll talk about Earth's spheres. So we're going to think about Earth as what we call a system, and then we'll talk about the parts of that system and how those parts work together for the greater good to create life as we know it. So just to kind of redefine Earth science, so this course is Earth system science, but if we're looking at just Earth science, this investigations of Earth's systems and the interaction among Earth's components. So that probably sounds like a vague or confusing definition at this point, but we'll dive into it here in a minute in a little bit more detail. So we're basically talking about how air interacts with water, how water interacts with rock, and how rock interacts with life, and how all of those interact with each other to give us life as we know it and to create life on Earth as we know it. So that's kind of what Earth science is. And as I said, we'll have a section devoted to the atmosphere in this course. We'll have a section devoted to water in this course. We'll have a section devoted to rocks and how all of those interact with each other in this course. So we can't talk about Earth as a system without acknowledging the fact that humans have a massive impact on the Earth and the Earth as a system. So, in terms of modern times, if we're looking at how humans affect things like water and rock and soil and other life and air, we can't ignore the fact that humans have a massive role or a huge role to play in terms of altering the way that Earth is functioning at this point in time. So, the reason for that is because there's now 8.1 billion of us on Earth as of when I was recording this. 8.1 billion of us. If you wanted to see the current updated estimate or population, you could go to Google, just Google current world population. There's a site that's called Worldometer, Worldometer. And then it has kind of this ticking clock that shows you how many people are estimated to be on the world, in the world at that point in time. So, for example, on the day I'm recording this, there's been 138,000 roughly births. There's been 62,000 deaths just today. So, just today, on the day I'm recording this, the population of the world has grown by 76,000 people in excess of what was there yesterday. If we look at just this year in 2024, we can see that there's basically 25 million extra people that have been added to the globe this year compared to last year. If we look at where all those people are, this is a little bit outdated at this point because it's from 2017. But if we look at where all those people are, they're going to be in China and India. That's a majority of the world's largest, or those are the world's largest two countries. So they have 18.5% for China and 17.9% of people for India. And then if we look at the US, basically it's only about 4% of the world population. All right, so if we look at human population growth, we didn't used to have 8 billion people in the world. We used to have many less people in the world. If we're looking at a timeline here, this is from the year 10,000 BC up to the present day. And then your y-axis here is billions of people on the globe in terms of population. So once agriculture began, we had roughly 500,000 people in the world, all the way up to about the Industrial Revolution. And then once the Industrial Revolution began, human population has just exploded since then. And the question is, what is the capacity of Earth? What is what's called the carrying capacity of Earth? How many people can we actually support on Earth without collapse of interactions of spheres and food systems and things like that? So we don't know if that's 9 billion people, we don't know if that's 10 billion people, or we don't know if we've already hit that capacity at this point. So if you're taking the quiz that goes along with this lecture, here's a good stopping point for your first question. So human population growth, if you ask environmental scientists, the number one issue on Earth is human population growth. Human population growth basically affects all other things on Earth, all other environmental problems on Earth. So human population growth is consistently listed as the number one environmental issue or environmental impact on Earth. So my question for you that you can answer in 2 to 3 sentences is, do you agree? If you agree, why do you agree? If you don't agree, why do you not agree with this statement? All right, so the second part here is just looking at what we call Earth as a system. So just to give you an idea, you have your body is a system. You have a circulatory system. You have a regulatory system. You have a lymphatic system. You have your car is a system. You have air conditioning system. You have a heating system. So we use the word system a lot. And if we define what a system is, it's basically just something that's working together for the greater good, but it has a bunch of parts and components to it. So I'll use a car as an example. So your car runs well when all of the parts are working together properly. If you have a flat tire, your car is not going to run. One part of that system is not working properly, so the system as a whole does not work properly. We can think of Earth, and I want you to think of Earth the same way. So Earth is a system. It's got all these parts. It's got air, it's got water, it's got life, it's got rock, it's got soil. All of those work together as a system, and if something is wrong with one of those parts of that system, the Earth as a whole does not function the way it would, just like when your car's tire is flat. So when we look at Earth as a system, it's broken into what we call spheres. So we're about to define 4 spheres, and then we'll finish up with some quiz questions. All right, so the atmosphere is part of Earth's system, and the atmosphere is just the air that's surrounding us. The technical definition of the atmosphere is that it's the gas that surrounds Earth from the surface up to 100 kilometers. You'll convert that to miles here in a second. Once you're above that, technically you're in outer space, but definitions vary in terms of what textbook you look at and who you talk to. So for the purposes of our course, we'll just say the atmosphere goes up to 100 kilometers above our heads. The composition of the atmosphere is up here on the right side in this pie chart. So we have nitrogen is 78%, oxygen is 21%, and then we have smaller amounts of other gases like water vapor, carbon dioxide, what we call the noble gases like helium, neon, methane, nitrous oxide, as well, which are greenhouse gases. In terms of the atmosphere has layers, so we'll look at these layers much later on in week 5 of this course, but the atmosphere is broken into layers based on temperature. So there's the troposphere closest to Earth's surface, there's the stratosphere above that, the mesosphere is above that, and then the thermosphere is the last layer of the atmosphere before you get to outer space. But again, we'll reiterate that later on in the semester. All right, so if we look at some calculations, what I want you to do is that you're going to do 2 quiz questions here with a couple of math problems. So question 2 on your quiz, what is the altitude at the top of the atmosphere? So 100 kilometers, I want you to just do a simple conversion between miles and kilometers. So 1 kilometer is 0.62 miles. And then your third question here, what is the elevation at the summit of Mount Everest in feet? So you have to use this figure here on the right side. If you look at Mount Everest has an elevation of 8,848 meters above sea level. So there's 3.28 feet in every meter. So you're going to convert meters to feet. All right, our second sphere, so we have the atmosphere is air. Our second sphere is the hydrosphere. If you are hydrated, you're drinking a lot of water. So the hydrosphere is water. This includes every drop of water on Earth. It includes the ocean. It includes glaciers, ice caps, groundwater, swamps, rivers, lakes, water that's down in subduction zones, water that's trapped in rocks. That is the hydrosphere. So just to remind you, Earth is known as the blue planet. So that basically means if you look at Earth from outer space, like here in the top right, what you see is mostly water. So of all of that water that we have on Earth, though, 97% of that is salty, too salty for us to drink. 97% is salty ocean water. If we take that 3% of fresh water that we do have on Earth, almost 70% of that is stuck in ice and glaciers, so it's not accessible to us to use as humans. 30% of that is fresh water locked up in groundwater, which we'll have a whole unit on later on. And then really only 0.3% of the 3% of fresh water on Earth is surface water. So if you think about drinkable water, clean, drinkable, fresh water that we have on Earth, we really don't have that much in terms of total available water to us for drinking. Okay, so fourth quiz question. If you had 100 parts of water on Earth, 97 are salt, 3 are fresh water, what I want you to do is use the figure over here of the 3 parts fresh water. How many of those parts would be glacier water? So finishing up with our last 2 here, our next sphere is the biosphere. So we already talked about water, or the hydrosphere, atmosphere, which is air, bio is life. So if you're a biologist, if you're a biology major, you are studying life. So the biosphere includes all of the kingdoms that are in biology. But if we focus more specifically, we're talking about flora, which are plants, and fauna, which are animals. So we're talking about plants and animals. So fauna would be this picture here on the left side that I took down in Virginia. And then this picture on the right side is a roseate spoonbill. It's a bird that lives down in Florida in the Everglades. So we've got animals, plants, including humans, and then also bacteria, mushrooms, all that kind of stuff would also be included in the biosphere. Lastly, we have the geosphere. Geo means rock. So geology is the study of rock, but geosphere means all rock on Earth, all minerals on Earth, and all of the soil that is on Earth as well. So if we're looking at the geosphere, it doesn't just include rock on land. So this is the Himalayas, and then this is India. All of that is part of the geosphere. The rock that made those mountains is the geosphere. The soil that you find in India is going to be the geosphere. So it includes all the rock on land, but it also includes rock down at the bottom of the ocean. We'll talk about this next week in week 2, but the ocean floor is made of a rock called basalt, which is a dark colored volcanic-based lava that cools, forms the ocean floor. So when we're talking about the geosphere, it includes both rock on land and rock down at the bottom of the ocean. So your fifth quiz question here is: the geosphere includes both the rocks on land and the rocks beneath the ocean. True or false? Lastly, to finish up, your final and sixth quiz question is that you have to use this diagram that's on the right side here. Basically, there are a certain number of letters here, and for every letter, it corresponds to one of these interactions that's over here in this table on the left side. So you're looking at how the geosphere, rock, air, water, and life interact with each other. There's no repeats in terms of these letters of these diagrams. And then what I'll point out is that the exosphere is outer space. So let me just give you an example if you're a little confused on how to proceed here. So the first interaction that I see is that it says plants absorb carbon dioxide. So if I see plants, you should think life, biology. If you see carbon dioxide, you should think air, atmosphere. So I already know that I'm looking for something that's a connection between the atmosphere and biosphere. What you need to pay attention to is that plants absorb carbon dioxide. So that means plants are taking in something from the atmosphere. So in terms of the direction of arrows here that we see, what I see is that I have carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is going in to the biosphere, into a plant. So for this first one up here, your answer is M. And then your task is basically to look at all of the other ones, all the other interactions, and match them to whatever letter they correspond to. All right, so that's it for this lecture here, and then you'll have obviously more lectures for this week.